Ron G Morning Show, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. only on WSAN Radio. So there we go. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah, Martha Rice dropped a dime on you. Said, Ron, you got to get this man on your show. And you know, Martha always she haven't let me down yet. She hasn't let
Awesome.
me down. I
Awesome.
want you to go ahead and
Great.
introduce yourself to our audience, sir.
My name's Jay Gauthier. I've been my background basically, I'm coming from Southern California. I've been actually in ministry as a pastor for about 38 years. Also, well, I'm an athletic coach. I'm a business entrepreneur in finance as well. And also a recent been doing some book authoring as well and got some great things out and a podcast leader.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're talking about your podcast and everything. So where let's not go way back to beginning, but what what did you do to get yourself in what you're doing right now? Because a lot of people say it's tough for them to get started on something. You know, I call them procrastinators when they do
Right.
that because they really don't want to do it, but they always make up an excuse. But what was your calling to go ahead and do this ministry and everything that you're doing?
Well, the current thing with Audacious Faith Ministries that I'm doing basically stemmed out of what you would call difficulty back in 2020. So obviously, I've been doing what I've been doing for a long time, but in 2020, of course, was pivotal for so many people. The pandemic had hit, everything had changed, the world around us was crazy, and we didn't know what was going on. And so I would say it was probably around May of 2020, and I was noticing that people were still not wanting to come outside, not wanting to get back to church. Um, and it was something that was very heavy on my heart. I thought, I want to reach people, I want to connect with people, I want to bless people in so many ways. And so I was kind of like, before bed at night, having those bedtime conversations with God, and I'm saying, I don't understand exactly what you want me to do, but I know you want me to do something. And I can't get people to come and they're isolated. And so basically, the impression I got back was if they're not going to come to you, you need to go to them. And what better tool than over the airwaves, YouTube, the internet, Spotify, whatever it was. And so, I think the first step for many people is just take that first step. You don't necessarily have to have it all mapped out right away. Things are kind of revealed as you go, but you've got to be willing to at least take a chance. And I remember a conversation that I had with my son about it. My son had a much bigger following in business and up online than I do. And I said, I'm thinking of doing this, but I'm a little afraid to do it. And he said, "What are you afraid to do it?" I said, "Well, I'm going to do this podcast and nobody's going to listen." And he said, "Well, everybody starts something and nobody listens. You got to start somewhere. You got to get going." And so I took that step of faith. We all have that imposter syndrome, right? I mean, we're going to go out there and it's going to be rejected. We've been fearing rejection from the very first time, that it ever happened to us in our life. But you've got to move past that. So I said, okay, we will do it and take the first step. He was actually the first interview, and we just got going. We're now at about 150 interviews later, and we're starting to get bigger and bigger guests, and got books out now and everything. So I would have no idea that that's where it was going to go. Well, all I knew was when it's time to start, you got to start.
You know, the pandemic sort of woke everybody up. And with the
Hmm.
technology was out there already with Zoom and everything else, because Zoom people wasn't too much messing with until the pandemic hit. And when it hit, Zoom just blossomed along with other platforms. And that was our way to getting out to people and getting
Right.
things. And so that sort of opened up a whole new door, like you said, on podcasts and doing things, because we had to almost reinvent how we get out to people because like you said, people was not coming out anymore. They were afraid and they were scared. And so with the Zoom, emerging out and podcasts coming out, people more or less started watching that and they felt at ease most of the time. But right now, to this day, they didn't say the pandemic is over with. It's still out there, but there's still people out there that's skeptical of getting out, which, I don't blame them because we're in a time right now that things are sort of chaotic and we got to bring some stability somewhere down the line, don't you think?
Absolutely. And Zoom, I know exactly what you're saying because I had resisted Zoom. My son was already using it. Um, we were doing appointments on Zoom for people that were out of the area because prior to that, anyone that we would sit down with, say in finance to help them with that, would have to be someone that was within our reach. We either had to get to their home or office, wherever they were, they needed to get to us. And suddenly Zoom opened up where we could go across the country and basically it could be the same. But I'm older, so I resisted the technology as a lot of people do. But the pandemic launched us into it where we had to use it. Now I'm so thankful for it because it just opened up a whole other world.
Yeah, I tell you, it has. And be utilizing it more nowadays than anything else because I use it all the time because it's
Sure.
perfect for me and everything. Um, about your podcast, what has been the most memorable story or testimony shared by someone that impacted by your podcast or speaking event?
Well, I think it's a common theme, is what it's been. There's been so many good ones, to be honest with you. And what I've loved about it, I mean, the premise of it is audacious faith for those who have the audacity to believe that God put them on this earth to do more than just to exist, but to make a huge difference in the world. And as we talk with people, this is the one recurring theme that I'm seeing over and over again. And that's that the experiences of people's life, even the ones that we wouldn't have chosen, God doesn't waste anything. He's always, everything has its importance for the moment, but at the same time, it's building for the future, for the next thing that's next. And that's been something that I've seen over and over again with guest after guest. Um, some amazing stories on how um, difficult times quite often, people taking a path, life taking a path with them that they would not have expected. And now they can look back and life can be understood backwards, so much better than forwards, to see how all those pieces put them into now where they currently are.
Okay. Um, what advice would you give someone who feels the call to ministry or leadership but doesn't know where to start?
Well, there's a few things that they should do. I would say probably the first thing is, what do you enjoy and what are you good at? Because I do believe that we all have different gifts and abilities. So, for example, when I didn't grow up in church, but I was then invited. I ended up in church. I was almost 17 years of age. And after doing, getting into some things, having my life change quite a bit, the first place that they put me, figuring as a teenager, to help was I was working with first graders. Okay, well, that was a valuable experience. And I love those first graders, but there's also one thing I learned about working with first graders. That just wasn't me. I didn't really have the patience for it. There are some people
Yeah.
that are wonderful at it, God bless them, but it really wasn't me. Now, can I do it? Can I get through it? Yes. Is it the most effective for me or for them? Not really. So, the first clues is what are some of the things that you enjoy? Because I don't believe that in ministry of any kind that you're destined or created to do something that is not a fit and that you don't like, that you're not good at. Sometimes we have to for the experience, but it's only temporary. So I would say, there's spiritual gifts texts, there's different people that you can get counsel from, try some different things, see what's effective, see where it seems to be most natural, and get started with that. And then I think another key thing is not only to learn as much as you can from the Bible itself, so you know what you're talking about, but at the same time, learn from people that are good at what you're wanting to do. And that's true of anything in life. Okay, so get some mentors. Um, find either people that are connected with you, or now there's so many resources out there. Learn everything you can about being the most effective in whatever area that is. And then the final thing kind of goes back to what I said before. You have to actually do it. And you can't be afraid to fail at things, because being afraid to fail, which means you're not going to do it at all, and then you're just not accomplishing anything. But there's people, you have to have the heart behind it. One of the things early on when I started in ministry, I had the heart behind it, but at the same time, um, I didn't have the heart for people that I have now. And I think that grows over time. You've got to care. It can't be just a task.
Which brings on to this question. I talked to several people about this,
Hmm.
and they were church hurt. They got away from church because how the church was, I guess, not teaching, but it's just they got hurt by the church.
Sure.
And so I hear that a lot, and I'm trying to figure out how can that be fixed? Are you scared to go back to church, or what, or have you lost faith? How will you tackle that about church hurt?
Church hurt is real. I mean, I've experienced it myself. I will tell you that in the church, and it's sad because that's not the way that we're supposed to be. But some of the times that people are hurt the most are by those within the family of God that you would think, would be right there by your side. People turn on you, they've gossiped on you, they've said things that they shouldn't say, and that's not what we expect. We tend to shoot or step on our own wounded instead of lifting them up. And I think that's a grave mistake. So I understand church hurt. I know I've experienced it myself personally as a pastor as well. I've learned a long time ago that you get a very small inner circle and there's only certain people that you can share certain things with. Um, so I would say, because I've experienced people have been devastated by it, it's the first thing to understand is that was whatever the hurt came from, those were people. That wasn't God himself. And it wasn't God's desire for that to happen that way. But people are flawed. We all know that because we all are. People are sinful. We know that because we all are. Um, so we can't dismiss God off completely, and have to understand that he's also the one that takes care of things. We need to kind of leave it. He does say, this sounds like an extreme verse, but vengeance is mine, I will repay. We're not the ones that are supposed to be doing it. Um, I would tell people that there are ways that it should be addressed. If they feel they can't go back to that church, then maybe there's a problem there, and then find one where they can. But we are supposed to be connected, and we are supposed to be part of a biblical community. So I would say that when we allow what people have done to take us out of that community completely, then we're allowing evil to win. And that's one thing that I was told in the past, oh, you need to leave, you need to give into it, go somewhere else, all that. And I said, well, then evil wins. And I can't, that's what it was intended for, and I can't allow evil to win. So there has to be that determination in there to stick with it.
Okay. Let me ask you something. This is one that several people we talk about this is the titles that you have in church as leadership. You get certain titles that you do. People complain because certain people get that title and they think they could tell you everything. Listen to me, this is what's going on. And as
Right.
soon as you tell them, no, I'm not going to do it, then all of a sudden they just look at you like you lost your mind. Do you know who I am?
Hmm.
Uh, I hear that all the time. Some
Right.
people get that title in church and think they could do whatever they want to do.
Sure.
Now, we know you're not supposed to do that. You
Right.
should never tell nobody, this is what I want you to do. You should ask, not tell, not volunteer. This is what you're doing. So that's some of the things I run across people talking about church hurt is that some people get entitled once they get that role. they feel they can say or do anything to anybody and nothing's going to happen.
No, I hear exactly what you're saying. I'm going to make a statement that may sound a little weird, but even as a pastor, I will tell you that I don't like or enjoy hanging around pastors that often. I'm certain ones, yes, but a lot of them I don't. And I'm not just talking about pastors. I'm talking about a lot of what you're saying. I think that we all need to understand. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and every once in a while, I'll admit there's the temptation where someone will say something to me or react to me a certain way. And there's that moment where I say to myself, "Are you serious? You know, you're going to talk to me like that? Do you not?" And I get exactly what you're saying there about that attitude. And
Hmm.
then it's like God has to put me in check and say, "Hey, you know what? Without me, you're nothing. Who do you think you are?" So
Yes.
you've got to understand that God resists a proud heart, and we have to be very careful. Whatever position or responsibility, that's a gift of God to be in that responsibility. We are His servants, and it's a privilege to be able to serve Him, to be able to serve people. When we start thinking that we're something, that's when we're going to be in some big trouble. So,
Oh,
yeah, I think it's very important. And I know I've been taken down a notch. If I can share a little story with you
sure.
on that comes to my mind. Earlier in 2024, I was battling what seemed like a cold, congestion, everything for months. Couldn't get rid of it. Turned out it just started to get worse. And then a friend of mine who was a doctor, she said, "You really need to go in." So I went in, and it turned out it was pneumonia. It was the first time I had ever had that in my life. And I was just feeling like death warmed over. And so, anyways, it was a Thursday. And I started thinking, it's like God was impressing on my heart. It's like, you know what? You really need to get somebody to cover for you for Sunday. You're not going to be able to do this. And I'm thinking, nah, I'll be able to do it. I would go. I'm one of those people that I look at people that get the little scratch in their throat, a little something, and they're home. And I try to set the example of, if you got to wheel me in, I'm going to be there. And so that's what I'm thinking. But finally, I said, all right, I have a friend who's an assistant pastor in another church. I'm pretty sure hopefully he's available, but I better ask him today. So I did that. And I told my son on text, I said, well, I'm going to be there, but I did get coverage. I'm going to be there. And his response to me was, "Oh, I think you should stay home." And well, I didn't like that response. And it's like, no, no, I'm going to be there. I'm fine. He goes, "You really should stay home and rest." I go, "No, I'm fine." So I'm taking a shower, nice steam, everything, and I'm just feeling like, I mean, I don't want to get crazy, no voice in the corner or bright light or anything, but I'm just feeling God's spirit in my heart saying, "You need to stay home Sunday and not go." And I'm just like, "No, I'm going. I'm going to be there, even if I just sit on the side." And it keep getting this thing, "No, you need to just stay home." So I get out of the shower. It's like I determine I'm going. I'm going. I get about halfway across my bedroom floor, and literally all of a sudden, I just cannot like breathe. I'm like with my hands over on my knees, almost to the floor. And it's almost like I could hear this voice saying, "You're hearing my voice, but you're not listening to me. You're not going. I do not need you. Stay home and let somebody else get out of the way and let someone else lead." And I was like, and basically it was like, you either do what I'm telling you or you're going to be on the floor begging for your next breath. And I was like, okay, I'm not, I'm basically not going.
Yeah.
And so here's what happened. That Sunday, I'm sitting home dejected, right? Because I'm important. I mean, I need to be there. Things don't run well if I'm not there. The people need to see me and all this kind of stuff. I'm watching it online at home. And meanwhile, I'm getting reports from my daughter and my son-in-law. Okay. "Oh, it's up to this. Oh, now more people came in. Now more people came in." I'm dying at home hearing all this. We have our highest attendance of the year while I'm sitting at home,
Mm.
right? it wasn't even, it was Palm Sunday. So I guess it was a special day, but it's not anything we promoted or anything like that. And I'm sitting there, talk about a humility thing. And it's almost like I can feel the voice of God saying, see, I told you, you know? And then basically the message was, I don't need you. I do want you, though.
Mm,
But let's understand, it's your privilege to serve me, but I can do it without you. And sometimes as you're coming back to it, we get this big haughty, like we're God's gift to everything. Well, he can do what he's going to do, whether or not we do it. But it is a privilege then to be able to do it.
man, that was deep. God told you to stay at home, you
Yeah,
know, and we hear those voices, but we're hard-headed.
absolutely. I was.
You got to get there. Without you, it's not going to work. But look what happened. It worked fine.
It worked fine. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. How can churches be better equip their members to live out their faith boldly in their community?
Well, that's a very good question. So the first thing is to be better equipped, we need to actually equip people. That seems pretty obvious, but it's something that we don't do. And I realized this for a long time. I think that one particular week also revealed to me, when I had to actually get somebody from the outside, and I thought to myself, I should already have people on the inside that I've already trained and I've already equipped and I've already spent time with. What if something happens to me? This was just one particular week. So we need to be identifying people with their gifts and their strengths, and we need to be giving them opportunity. I know for those who serve in positions of ministry, it's something we really enjoy doing usually. We need to give that joy and that fulfillment to other people, give them the opportunity to do it as well in whatever their giftings are. And so that's a renewed purpose. I think that there's ways to train. We should be being conscious of training that next man or next woman up. That's very important. So when we go to do something that we already know how to do, take somebody along with you that maybe doesn't know how to do it as much so that they can learn. Um, Years ago, we did a lot of visitation to homes of people. And I remember learning how to do that. I was an introverted person, quite honestly. So the thought of going to somebody's house that I didn't know, knocking on the door, going in and setting a conversation was not something that came natural to me at all. And there was this guy, Gary, older man. He actually sold cars for a living, so he was used to talking to people. And Gary was pretty well off at this point in his life, but he started with very humble beginnings. So we drive into an area, not the greatest area of town, in his nice fancy Cadillac. And we get out of the car and we go to this family, very, much lower income than what he was currently at that particular point. And we go in and they were a little self-conscious. You could tell about us coming in, a very, a small little one room, very humble place. And we go in there and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is not going to be good. What in the world is Gary going to have in common with these people, right? At this point. And what I witnessed amazed me. I mean, Gary started to have a conversation and just make them feel so very comfortable, and they were getting along great, and it was a wonderful conversation about their family and their kids and all those type of things, and it was just fantastic. I couldn't believe what was going on because I wouldn't have known how to do that. And so we leave, and I said to him, I said, I don't know how you do that. How did you get, you know, them to feel so comfortable like that? I want to learn how to do that. And he said, well, it's really simple. He goes, people want to talk about what they care about, what means something to them. I walk in and I look for clues. I see the pictures on the wall. I see the things that are there, and I saw pictures of their kids. And so I started asking about their children and their family, and you saw how they lit up. And he goes, that's all I do. You've got to find common ground with people. Well, I never forgot that lesson. I was only about 26 at the time. I was an assistant pastor at the time. I never forgot that, how to connect with people. But I wouldn't have learned that without seeing it in action. So I think equipping is we've got to understand, hey, if we have certain skills and we know how to do it, that's great. But let's reproduce that in others and give them the joy of serving as well.
Okay, we got one. Somebody just chimed in with a question. It probably goes along what you're talking about right now. But anyway, they want to know what advice will you give someone who is hesitant to step into leadership or ministry?
I've had that a lot of times with people. And I would say that the biggest hesitancy that some people have is they'll tell you, um, I just know myself and I can't take that responsibility on. I know I'm going to blow it. I'm going to hurt people. I'm not going to be able to do what you do. That's often the excuse and the reason. And I believe that's been true all the way since the beginning. For example, Moses in the Bible was called by God. I mean, the burning bush, I mean, if there's anyone you're not going to say no to, right? You would think as you're standing on this holy ground and God's telling you, go to Pharaoh, go to Egypt. And what did Moses do? The first thing Moses did was give all the reasons why that wasn't going to work. He's not going to listen to me. I'm not a good speaker. I don't know how to talk. All the different reasons.
Hmm.
Okay. And yet God was like, no, you're going. This is what I'm telling you. And so um, the hesitancy are all the reasons why we're going to fail. Okay. You got to do it anyways. That's the first thing. You got to make that decision to do it anyways. The second thing is um, that, and now I'm drawing a blank of what I was going to say the second thing was. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
Um, Gosh, and I had it and it was good. Okay. The second thing is that as we do it, then we need to um, be praying quite a bit. That is extremely, extremely important. Okay. Here's the point I really wanted to bring up. Instead of thinking about how we're going to fail, we need to think about what's going to happen and what are going to be the consequences if we don't do it. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily a fear of God, although that's healthy and we should if that's what he's directing us to do. But who is depending on you? Why is God calling you to step into ministry to begin with? What lives are going to be touched? Okay. A lot of times people think to themselves, well, it's not, the impact won't be that big. Well, what is that big? Let's define that. If one life was impacted, if one life was changed, is that not big? I mean, that is huge, right? And so, who is not going to be touched? Whose life is not going to be changed? For me, when I was first called into ministry, and it really solidified, I was in Bible college and played for me at one of the chapel services was a recording of a 16-year-old boy who was on LSD at the time, and he was recording a suicide message to his mother. And at the end of that message, you hear the sound of the gunshot that ends his life. That rang in my head.
Mm.
I could not shake that. And here's the question that came to my mind that I kept asking. What would it have taken to change that outcome? What would it have taken? Would it take just one person that actually was there? One person that actually that young man connected with before he made that choice? What would it have taken? And so my decision that day was, I don't know how, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know where this is going to lead. But God, whatever you want me to do to make a difference, I'm going to be willing to do it. And I had to trust him for the rest of it. So I would tell your person there or anyone else that's asking that question, again, you're not necessarily going to see the end of the road when you start out on it. But if you know and feel the call that you're supposed to start on that road, you start and let God take care of the rest.
Wow. which leads on to this next question. I mean, you just feel right into this next question, what you just said. Um,
Okay.
can you tell us about a turning point in your spiritual journey that shaped your current mission?
Current mission?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So, early on, I don't want to take too long of a bunny trail, but early on, I felt a very strong call of God that God wanted to use my life to reach thousands of people. And maybe that's part of what we're doing right now, hopefully. Um, and so I said, okay, I'm ready, let's go. And I thought I knew what that was going to look like. It was as a pastor of a church, and all kinds of people were going to come into the church. The church was going to be huge. It was going to be a huge congregation. Nope, that wasn't it. I mean, I'm doing that, but has it ever grown huge? No, not necessarily within the building. Um, and then the process of just trying to serve people and everything, and basically for about 20 something years after that, I felt like I took, a step forward, two steps back, a step forward, two steps back, just beating my head against the wall. Okay. It culminates around 2008, 2009, right in there, about a 5 year period of time where everything starts falling apart. I mean, falling apart. My mom, who was about 63 at the time, never really been sick in her life, all of a sudden gets cancer. 6 months later, she's gone. I was very close to my mom. That was a shocker right there. My dad was 8 years older. He had more health problems. He was the one expected to go all of a sudden. So there's my dad without my mom. My mother-in-law, who was like a second mom to me, and she would be at our house about half the week. Um, about a year later, she falls to the floor in the middle of the night, heart attack, take her to the hospital. She's gone. Okay. Leaves just my dad, who's got dementia and he's looking around like, what in the world has happened here? And we're trying to take care of him. Going through that about a year later, he's gone. So all these three people now that were very, very key in my life, all of a sudden are gone. Financially, we're getting just hit everywhere. We're about ready to lose our home, everything we'd worked for. And I'm trying to work second jobs, third jobs, doing everything I can to just try to, pay the bank. Because we had gotten bad financial advice, refinanced, did all these different things, were in horrible loans, had a huge payment, couldn't pay it, just buried. Church suffering financially, suffering through things, couldn't pay me. So now the finances are even worse. Everything's just snowballing. Okay. Then we have another ministry that comes in, is very similar to ours. We're looking to kind of like, it ends up where we build a friendship. Everyone gets intertwined. It looks like the church is coming together and it's merging. Then there's a moral issue with some of the kids that involve the other pastor's daughter. And this
Mm-hmm.
whole thing blows up, absolutely blows up. Everyone's hurt, everyone's crying. Um, and then there we are, we go from 100 and something people down to 27, and it's like a morgue in there. And so everything's happening. It's the night before I'm going to lose everything. We're going to have a big old U-Haul and we're going to move out. I feel like I've failed at everything and failed everyone. I've done absolutely nothing right. And so I'm in bed late night. That's when I seem to have these conversations. And I'm saying to God, I don't understand what happened. All I ever wanted to do was help people. I don't understand. Everything has fallen apart. You told me I was going to impact a lot of people. What in the world has happened? And the message I kind of got that impressed in my heart was this. You need to remember what I'm telling you right now, because if not, the time's going to come when you're going to give up. Just when it looks like it's never going to happen, that's when it will. And you know what? I held on to that over the course of about 7 years, where things were just, sometimes they got really bleak. There was a point, honestly, I wasn't suicidal, but there was a point where I could understand how people can be, how they could get to that point.
Right.
Um, the reason I wasn't was because I knew that other people like my family needed me, and I knew that there were responsibilities. And if I were to do that, then there was no chance of there being a brighter day. So I pushed forward. To me, it would have been just too selfish to do that. But a lot of pain. And so, but what I learned was that the pain often is necessary. I think that whenever God wants to do something big in your life, he breaks us first. I think it's a consistent pattern that we've seen through the Bible and that we've seen through so many people in history that God has used in a great way. So if your listeners are going through it right now and they're going through some pain, God has not forgotten them. Okay. God has not abandoned them. But diamonds are created under extreme pressure. And so we've got
Yes.
to know that and have that faith that there's still something for you. Um, and so that was the real turning point for me. For instance, I learned empathy that I didn't have before. How can you understand what people are going through unless you go through things? I was terrible at hospital calls, for instance, terrible. I didn't like hospitals. It would take me forever to get there, and when my dad is passing, my mom was passing away right at that moment. And when my dad was passing away, key people showed up at those particular moments. And I mean, I still get choked up thinking about it. Just having them there, I realized at that moment how much it meant, even though they couldn't do anything, even though they couldn't change anything, how much it meant for a person to be there. These are the things that I learned. I wouldn't have learned them through any other way. And so for your people that are going through things right now, God's not punishing you, but he's preparing you. And that was a real turning point for me. And then you take those things that you learn and then you realize it's for a purpose. Now I'm going to be there for others that go through it and step into it at that point.
Mm, wow. Yeah, talking about having faith. You gotta have it. You never know what's gonna hit you.
Right.
It's something else because I lost my mom a few years ago,
Hmm.
and but we knew the passing was coming.
Yeah.
But when it comes, it hits you. You're never prepared.
No, you're not.
You say you're prepared, but you're not. You know,
Mhm.
and some of the I hate to criticize some people, but I'm gonna say it. They come up to you and say, I know how you feel. And they
Right.
still got both their parents living. No, you don't know how I feel.
Right.
And it's sort of hard for people to come up to you and give their condolences, you know, sorry for your loss.
Hmm.
Just keep it short and sweet because you don't know what's going through their mind or anything. You don't want to trigger anything off on them, you know.
Yeah.
So that is hard when things like that happen. And going through that, like you went through three people passing away that was close to you,
Hmm.
and it just felt like the end. And the part I like is when you said you learned empathy
Hmm.
because a lot of people don't have that. It's like, I don't care. And you have to care,
Yeah.
you know. What happens if you're in the same boat? You want somebody to come help you, but empathy or just tell you get over it. You know, I hate to sound so blunt, but some people are like that.
Yeah, and you're touching on something so powerful when you're saying about when people say I understand, because I made that mistake in the
Mhm.
past where someone that I worked with for a while, she was my assistant, and she was going through something, and then I said, "No, I understand." And she goes, "No, you don't." She got very upset. She goes, "You don't understand what I'm going through, so don't tell me you understand." And it shocked me when she responded like that, but I realized she was right. Wait a minute, I don't. You know, and even if you think you do, it's still everybody is different. So instead of saying I understand, now I'll come along and say, I'm so sorry you're hurting right now, or something like that. I just want you to know that I care. I don't have magic words to make it all go away for you. But if you need someone to talk to, understand that, there are people that love you and care about you. It's a much more effective way than just saying I understand.
Yeah. Mm, wow. All right, I got one last question for you.
Sure.
Where did I put it at? Where was it? Boy, I did the same thing. I had it right on the tip of my tongue.
Oh, it happens so easily.
Oh man. Oh, it's about your book. That's
Yes.
what it was. About your book. Um, you came out with your book. What inspired you for that book? And what was the faith journey that you took upon writing that book?
So this book is kind of a compilation of 38 years of experience in ministry of what God's taken me through. It's called the Audacious Faith Playbook. And the reason it's called a playbook is because that's exactly what it's supposed to be. In life, there are different situations. We've talked about some of them today that already come up. There are times you need to feel like you're loved. Okay, there are times when you need to be able to trust God. There are times when you don't know what to do and you're mismanaging your money. There are times when the thief is coming and trying to steal, kill, and destroy things in your life. All these different situations of life. And there were certain messages and themes that God took me to that that I really developed over the years of time, and some that really have stood out to me. And so I compiled them into this Audacious Faith Playbook, 14 of them, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Just like when we were watching football yesterday, which some people were doing in the afternoon. And for different situations, there's a different play that's called. Okay, well, I believe that in different situations of life, there are spiritual principles that we can call upon and we can rely upon when we face those situations, and it's time to call that play. So that's what the Audacious Faith Playbook is. It's 14 of those major areas of life. And I try to do, we mentioned pastors earlier. One pet peeve I have about pastors sometimes is we try to sound so intelligent and we try to sound so smart and so deep that people often don't even understand what we're throwing out there. And so I wanted to take these principles scripturally and make them easy to understand and as applicable as possible that people could apply them to their life. And so that's what I've sought to do here. It's very simple. And then what we've also created now, which just came out, is the Audacious Faith Playbook Companion Guide. So what people can do is it takes each one of the chapters, breaks it down into a daily devotional for 5 days of the week with extra scriptures and extra ways to dive into that topic. And then it even has a group session. So if they're doing it as a small group, they can then come together on a Sunday or whatever day that they meet, and they can have a group discussion also talking about it as well. And what I've tried to do, by the way, this will sound like a commercial, but you asked me, is I want as many people to get this in their hands as possible. Okay, so we priced it for as low, and it's through Amazon, so as low as Amazon will allow us to price it. Okay, so each one, the book and the companion guide, are each both $5.99 each. So for $12, basically, you can get the whole thing, and then go through that. That's what we're trying to do. And also I'm waiting for it to get cleared, but for those who prefer Audible books, I just recorded the audio version and we're just waiting for them to clear it. And so the book will be on Audible as well for those who like it that way.
Wow, that's a lot. Oh, but that's a good price. You're saying you make it affordable for everybody to get it,
Right.
and that's good. So, say it again. Let us know how we can get a hold of you, how we get your book, where you're located at, so the listeners could know where to tune into.
Awesome. So for the book itself, you can go on Amazon, look up Audacious Faith Playbook, or look up my name, J. Gauthier Sr., and you should find, or put both. That'll make it even easier. You should find the book there, and the companion guide is there. For the podcast, we're on YouTube, the Audacious Faith Podcast. Um, Also, we have Instagram, Audacious Faith Podcast. We can also be found on Spotify, Apple, all of those. You can find the podcast. You can contact me very easily, jgauthier@gmail.com, or jgauthier senior on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you want to find me. Um, I love being contacted. So a lot of people get contacted and they don't get a response. More than likely, I will see it and I will respond to you quickly. So feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Okay, Jay Gauthier, I appreciate you being on this morning. Man, I like this. You enlightened some things in because I was at a wellness convention yesterday,
Hmm.
and we had a lot of coaches who were faith leaders.
Okay.
And it was, I was like I was in church again Saturday,
Wonderful.
because the way they were coming out, and it so coincide what you're saying today, what I was listening to. And man, this is awesome. I like this. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Don't stop. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. And you keep doing what you're doing as well, because I think it's awesome and you're reaching a lot of people. So God bless you for what you're doing.
Okay. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to WSAN Radio. Catch us on our YouTube channel, WSAN Radio SA. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button.